Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we talk all things Colorado Rockies. Fun show in store here today. First thing we're going to talk about, the Colorado Rockies and their bats remain hot in spring training, taking down the Arizona Diamondbacks today 13-2 in a game where everyone was just hitting the crap out of the baseball today. TJ Rumfield goes 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs. Brenton Doyle goes 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs. It was just a mixture of a lot of guys knocking in hits. Hunter Goodman went 1 for 3. He had an RBI. It's good to see his bat starting to get going. His batting average this spring is still around 111 or 110. And so there's obviously been some struggles, but overall you have to feel pretty pleased with the Rockies scoring 13 runs in this game. And this is after a game against Seattle where they scored 11 runs. Why does this all matter? Well, the Rockies were one of the worst lineups in baseball last year. And it's important to take away some moral victories for the Colorado Rockies. And if the bats are hot in the spring, the hope is it carries over into the actual season. And look, there were a lot of guys in this game who will not be on the opening day roster. But there's a lot of guys who will be on that 40-man roster at the very least. Even Adele Amador went 1 for 2. He had 2 RBIs, and he's batting about 235. So, just looking up and down from kind of performances across the board, you walk away feeling pretty good. It was tough to see. Kyle Karros goes 0 for 3, Ryan Ritter goes 0 for 2, and Jake McCarthy goes 0 for 2. So a couple names there that struggled. But overall for the Rockies, they score a bunch of runs with 11 total hits, and they don't have any errors. So have to be pleased with another solid performance from the bats. And that's going to be a big thing in 2026. Look, we expect pitching to struggle just because of some youthfulness, just the difficulties overall of pitching at Coors Field. But one of the staples for the Colorado Rockies has always been having a really solid lineup. And that needs to be an expectation this year, that the Rockies can put together a solid lineup. You probably expect Tovar to be the leadoff guy. Maybe it's Doyle. Who knows? But the Colorado Rockies need to get on the right foot to get the season rolling. And games like this give you a little bit more confidence heading into things, especially from guys like TJ Rumfield who are competing for a starting position. That's really encouraging. Brenton Doyle, because he's a guy that we have just been wanting to be better after that 2025 season. I don't know why I said 2025 like that. That was weird. We're moving on to Sean Sullivan, who has another solid outing. Sullivan goes 4 innings pitched. He gives up 2 runs, no walks, and a strikeout. And Sullivan's stuff is different. We've talked about it quite a bit on the show. He's not gonna overpower you with his velocity. It is his control. No walks is obviously very encouraging, and he's got a 3.38 ERA in the spring. And he's on the outside looking in for a starting spot to begin the year. But I think he's shown us enough that he is definitely a guy that will make an appearance in 2026. I almost did it again. Make an appearance in 2026. And so that is encouraging. Even if he's a back-end rotation piece, that's still important. And it's still important to have some depth there. And let's face it, he's looked better than Ryan Feltner so far this spring. Most guys have. And so it's definitely important to have some of these other young guys step up. Because the Rockies are going to need it. They're going to need these pitchers to just, at the very least, look okay. On top of that, though, there were some other encouraging performances. Jaden Hill, who's really struggled. He had a monster game. 2 innings pitched. He gives up 2 hits and a walk. 5 strikeouts, though, for Hill. And if you don't know who Jaden Hill is, you will learn who he is this season. he can touch 100 miles an hour. Got a nasty fastball. Control will be his biggest thing heading into the season. But I expect him to be a contributor in the bullpen. Halverson also gives you a scoreless frame. He does have 2 walks, though, and a strikeout. So that's a big thing, is control for these Colorado Rockies. Cannot fall behind and cannot give up base runners with how thin their margin of error is. But overall, really positive. John Brebbia, he said, hey, I'll give you a scoreless frame. Pitching looks good in this game. Rockies win 13-2. Obviously happy about Sullivan just because he's just one of these young arms that we're still learning more about. We hope that he can make an appearance at the major league level and make an impact. It's one thing to be brought up and you have nine total innings pitched and a 10 ERA and you're never seen again. That's one thing. It's another to actually be impactful at the major league level. And that's what the Rockies need. They just need guys who can make an impact. And for Sullivan, that's really the biggest thing as he continues to develop. Hey, look, folks, we are just a week away. We're a week away or 10 days away, I should say, from the end of spring training. And the Rockies have some decisions to make. They still have a ton of guys on this roster that they'll have to decide for that 40-man roster, and then, of course, that opening day roster of 26 guys. And we mentioned John Brebbia. He's kind of what will they do with guys like him and Nicky Lopez, guys who just signed a non-guarantee, just really a spring training spot, and have they done enough? I don't know if either of those guys have, but those are the decisions that this front office and this staff will have to make. They will have to decide who's that 5th guy for the starting rotation. One that we don't necessarily have an answer to. I've been pretty vocal that I'd love to see Dollander, but look, there's a chance that they just say, hey, Ryan Feltner, he's the most experienced, and we want him to be the guy at least to start the season. I think that would be really disappointing if that's the decision made, but I could see the reason for that. And obviously, hey, we want some of these other guys to develop. We want Dollander to spend a little time in AAA. That could be the decision making. I think I'm growing more and more on the side of I don't think it's the craziest idea to look to deal Feltner. Granted, maybe he starts the season hot, and hey, we think he's a real piece. I would see that even more encouraging to, hey, you can get more value out of a guy like Feltner, who's 29, and who knows what his overall contribution will be to the Colorado Rockies. So that's pitching. Obviously, infield. We talk about first base every episode, it feels like, but that's a real question. But it feels like TJ Rumfield is not running away with it, but it's starting to feel like he's the front runner at this point. And the next 10 days will show if he can really latch on to that starting position, if Troy Johnson or Charlie Condon, if they can do anything. Those feel like the two that are also kind of close behind. Krim and Julian, they just don't feel like they should be in the race for starting at first. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe the staff is like, we love the way Edward Julian hits ground balls, and we want him to start at first. If that's the case, then he'll probably be the guy at the first base position. But, a lot of these guys are starting to feel locked up. Second base feels like Castro, Tovar at short, Karros at third. The outfield feels all but locked down with McCarthy, Doyle, and Beck. And then, of course, Hunter Goodman at catcher. So that feels like what we're looking at for an opening day lineup. What the lineup will entail is maybe something we'll do in the next week of what we think 1 through 9 will look like. Mickey Moniak being that DH. So really, it's just getting answers at the first base position. Unless Kyle Karros has an absolute meltdown these next 10 games, I see him being the guy at third. So really feel comfortable saying that. But we'll have to wait and see on obviously the lineup side of things. Pitching, that feels like much more of a toss-up just because who knows? Who knows what the Rockies will decide to do on that front. Finally, let's end Friday's show. Send you off into the weekend because Team USA advanced thanks to Italy absolutely taking Mexico to town. An absolute beatdown. But one of the big decisions that Team USA has made is Joe Ryan will replace Clayton Kershaw after that quarterfinal matchup where Team USA is taking on Team Canada. And it makes sense. Obviously, having Kershaw on the team, in theory, I totally get it. Like, hey, this is a guy that has made a huge impact on baseball, is maybe the greatest pitcher of our generation, or is at least in that regard, in that realm. And when he was announced to be on the team, I think it was a pretty cool thing to kind of tip your cap, say, hey, this is one final go. But after that loss to Italy, I think it kind of was a wake-up call to Team USA is, hey, pitching could be a weak spot. And there is obvious evidence that Team USA wants to win. They do not want to go home. They don't want to have what happened last time the World Baseball Classic happened, where they lost to Team Japan in that championship game. And so by adding Ryan, it gives them another solid arm. Kershaw's arm is just, it's not the same. It's not. And it makes sense. He's old. He's retired, for crying out loud. Let that guy enjoy retirement. But overall, happy with the move, just because for Team USA, you have to have as many arms as possible, especially if any of these games kind of get tight or if they go into extras. It would be pretty damning if it's like in the 12th inning and Kershaw's thrown out there. You don't have a lot of confidence if that's the case. Just because even from my own eyes, watching him pitch against the Colorado Rockies, against a lot of guys who aren't going to be on the opening day roster, it wasn't overly encouraging. And so it's the right decision. You obviously salute Kershaw. And if they're blowing out Canada, get him in the game, let him pitch an inning, get his standing ovation, get him out of there so he can enjoy retirement. And for that, we're going to enjoy our weekend, folks. That does it for another Rockies Daily. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. It's a ton of fun to talk about the Rockies. It is exciting that baseball season's almost here, and I hope we can continue to grow this thing out. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next Monday.